Welcome to our program, Job Search Strategies for CED International Students. Thank you all for coming, the students and recent alumni out there. And we have, besides me, Dinorah, I'm the Assistant Director / Career Counselor.
We end up justifying projects
for CED. If everybody could mute themselves, that would be helpful. I have with me my colleague Jing, who's also an Assistant Director at the Career Center, and she's basically the Career Counselor for international students. And then we also have 5 guests, 5 alumni or employers who who've agreed to come and share their knowledge and experience with you. And we are very grateful to you all for coming and helping us out with this and sharing your wisdom with students. So thank you very much. So the way we're going to be going today, Jing and I are going to speak for about a half an hour, giving you some general information, an overview of strategies and resources for the job and internship search. And then we're going to move into a panel and into some questioning, some moderating of a panel, and we'll ask a variety of questions which should help fill you in. The way we've come up with these questions is based on the survey that we sent out, that you filled out, where you indicated your specific questions that you wanted to have answered in the course of this session. So hopefully this will meet your needs. And I'm just going to get started with the material now. So first of all, let me share who we have with us. You can see up on the slide, we have Emily Spring from MBH Architects, Hong Lin Lee from SOM, Kai, Adam Ing, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, I apologize, Kai, from PWP, Tasha Golani from Cahill, and Deeksha Rawat from Wallace Robertson Todd. And they're going to actually introduce themselves more fully later, but you can see right now who we have up front. Then we're going to move into the first question, which you've expressed an interest in, which is, what is the recruiting timeline? When should I be looking for work? And so I wanted to speak to the fact that recruiting timelines vary from one industry to another. And you might hear from friends in different colleges at Cal that they've already, even in August, were involved with on-campus recruiting or off-campus recruiting at this point, but applying for opportunities, whether they be internships or jobs. And the fact is, for a lot of finance jobs and engineering, oftentimes, and some others, the recruiting cycle starts in early fall, or even sometimes the previous spring or summer. So CED is somewhat different from other colleges. And you should know that for full-time jobs, there are opportunities available year-round. We'll be talking a little bit more about Handshake versus what you might see otherwise. Internships are generally, there tend to be more that emerge or come up for applications starting in the spring, starting in January. And then the CED Career Fair we've had in the past in March or February. This spring in March, we're having it March 4th on a Thursday. And this will be for both internships and jobs. So that's the general gist of when opportunities are made available. And moving into a little bit more specific data. So Handshake has these reports, and you can look up according to internships and jobs and industry and job function. And so in this one, you can see the internships are in the blue bars that you can see down below, and the jobs, excuse me, are in green. And so you can see sort of the peaks and valleys of when opportunities are available. And so this is by industry. So within the architecture and planning industry, these are the opportunities. And you can see that in January, moving down till, say June, there's sort of a peak in the spring, and then it goes down, and then it comes back up, and it goes back down. So you can see that there's a rhythm to it. And And that also, this end of the, this is also ranging from 2016 to 2020, around where we are now. You can see that there aren't that many opportunities that are shown. Looking at the next slide, oops. That's not where I want to be. Okay. Yes, this is by function. So this is not necessarily in the architecture industry. This could be in other arenas, other industries, but where architecture and planning functions are still important. So you can see that there's a similar kind of a rhythm, but actually towards the end of this line, there's a little bit higher numbers than what we saw in the previous one. So this, I believe, speaks to the fact that even if within architecture and planning, sort of the core industries that you might be looking in, or that there are related industries where there are opportunities that you might want to be looking for. So this suggests the value of looking beyond just the narrow area. And then the next slide we have, this is just jobs. And you can see it still speaks to the ups and downs. What I'm doing here is, what I'd like to do between this and the next slide is compare the jobs within architecture and planning, within that industry. And then on the next slide, you can see that these are in other industries: real estate, transportation and logistics, nonprofit, government, and construction. There are good numbers of jobs listed. So again, this is still in Handshake. So this suggests, again, looking beyond just the architecture and planning industries. And you can see on this last slide, the comparison of, there's some similarities in the flow, but also it just suggests that you don't need to limit yourself to just architecture and planning industry careers. So you're going to be getting this PowerPoint afterwards. We're going to send it out, so you don't need to be, crazily taking notes. Anyway, I hope this gives you an idea. I also wanted to point out that you can see that actually there's a higher number here. You can see there are a good number of, there's an uptick in opportunities, whereas it's lower within architecture and planning. So that's why, another reason why it's a good idea to look outside. Okay, so now we're going to move into what past trends can help us think about, or how they can help us anticipate future possibilities. And Jing is going to take it from here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dinorah, for the information about the timeline and overall landscape, right? So first of all, as the career counselor for international students, many times when I'm meeting with students from CED, the number one question you will ask me, or the career counselor, will be, when should I get started, right? What is the peak time for me to do full-time or internship search? So thank you, Dinorah, for the data. So we see full-time jobs are more year-round, and the internships are more in the spring. And then we do see the impact from COVID, right, to the spring we had. There are a smaller number of job postings on Handshake. So that's kind of the timeline and then the overall, landscape we're facing. And then many of the international students also want to know, what is the job market like for international students, especially in CED at this point, and what is the landscape and how we can better prepare ourselves. So for that question, we think the closest data we can get is from the Berkeley International Office CPT internship and the OPT full-time job employment data. We are still in the middle of the uncertainty. The situation is always still evolving and fluid. So we are also learning by talking to the employers and watching the employment results. So on this page, I want to show you from the Berkeley International Office, the CPT internship report and the OPT extension full-time job report from CED international students over the past 2 years. So we're looking at data from August 2019 to August 2020, and then the data of August 2018 to 2019. So we're comparing the 2-year data. Especially, we know pandemic hit us in March. So we want to see how the past school year is like comparing with the year before to see if there's anything, we should pay attention to. And then here's what we learned after the data. So Dinorah, if you can click on the first item there.
Okay, why is it not doing it?
Yeah, click on your mouse and then it will
there we go.
forward. Here we go. Thank you. Yeah. So the number one thing we found out that surprisingly, there's no obvious job or degrees with internship or OPT full-time job offer report from international students. So either the overall number or the number for CPT internships or OPT full-time job or OPT extension full-time, they're pretty much the same as the year before. So that's a good news we found out there. But more specifically for the year of 2019 to 20, altogether for CED international students, the school received 168 CPT internship or OPT full-time job employment reports, okay? And then out of the 168, 55 are internship using CPT. And then 68 are OPT full-time job, full-time job using first year OPT. And 39 are the international students who are applying the OPT extension to continue their employment in the US. Okay, so that's the number of the OPT CPT reports of CED international students of last school year. And then the second thing we found out, Dinorah, if you can move on, is that, yes, if we look into the CPT and OPT reports, more than 70% of the OPT CPT reports are from master degree students. So that's the case for CPT and also OPT reports. So I think one of the reasons for this is because for master degree students, many of the programs are STEM program, right? So for STEM program students, after the first year OPT work authorization, you can apply for the 2-year extension. So having 3-year OPT work authorization that help you with talking to the employers about, the employment, full-time opportunities. So that might be one reason. And then the third thing we found is that for the CPT internships, a good number of the students are doing summer internships, but also we find a good number of students also doing semester internships, which means in the fall or the spring, you can do a part-time internship while you're taking full-time course. You can apply for CPT to do that as well. So the semester internship has the benefit of facing less competition because less students are available or thinking about it. So if you can take your time to do a part-time internship during the semester, that can be a great opportunity to get a work experience, okay? And among the CPT internships, the top programs getting CPT internships are, like you can see on the slide, the number one is Master in Architecture, followed by Master of Landscape Architecture, and then Bachelor in Architecture. And then for the OPT reports, the top programs are Master in Urban Design, followed by Master in Architecture, and then Master in Landscape Architecture, and then Bachelor in Architecture. Okay, so those are the top programs getting the most CPT and OPT. The last one we also found out is that a good percentage of students are using OPT extension. That means they're continuing with their employment, right, beyond the first year OPT to get a work experience. So those are the things we found out from the OPT CPT data from bio. Those are the most solid data we can gather to understand how the employment result is like for international students, okay? And the employers who hired CED international students using OPT, that data is in Handshake resources. So you can check there who are the employers that hired international students from CED, UC Berkeley over the past 3 years. We're gonna talk about that resource later, okay? But those are the data we wanna share at this point with you, hopefully to help you understand, right, the chances for CED international students regarding internship and full-time job. Okay. Thank you, Dinorah.
All right, so moving on. Many of you wanted to know what job search resources you should use, and we are going to talk about that, or I'm going to talk about that. Whoops, once I get back to where I was. So of course we have Handshake, we know about that. And then we also, the Career Center has part of its website. You can go to this, if you click on here, you can get to these external websites, this page that has listings or job boards that are put out by various organizations like AIA East Bay and others. So you can click on those to find other opportunities. And then on top of that, there is what's called the hidden job market. And that is essentially opportunities that are not necessarily listed, that you may not find in job postings, but they may eventually wind up in job postings, or they may never get to be posted. But they're the ones that employers are working on, that they're gradually going to hire people for, but which may not be posted yet. And people find out about them through networking. And this number, 70 to 85%, seems very high, but so there are different places you look will say different things about the percentages of how much networking leads to actually finding opportunities, but it can be as high as this. So the point is that it's very important, and that you don't want to limit yourself just to applying online, keeping yourself limited to what you find somewhat passively. You're going to want to become a little bit more active in the process. So here we're going to move into, Jing is going to talk more about the international student situation.
Yeah, thank you, Dinorah. Yeah, for the Handshake and then the external job search websites. For sure, check back the Career Center website for those lists, right? Then you can leverage them. And then for international students, I want to also provide some extra resources we can double check. The first one is also in Handshake. So basically, I'm pretty sure many of you tried Handshake before. So when you log into Handshake, either you go to the jobs page or the career fair page, you can find the work authorization filters at both pages. So the filters look like this, like the screenshot on the slide here, right? So under the work authorization filter, you can filter job postings or employers at the career fair by either they're willing to sponsor or doesn't require US work visa, or they may or may not sponsor a job visa, but they're accepting OPT CPT. Every employer, every job posting they put on Handshake, they are required to answer the 2 questions. So it's a good data for us to take as a reference to find out which employers are open to international students to apply. So that's one filter I hope you can use more. You can pair the work authorization filters with industry or job function or your major, right, in your internship or job search, and see how the result is like. For today, before our session, I just logged into Handshake and then searched the employers based on internships and jobs, and then architecture planning industry. And then I click on accepting OPT CPT, and then 15 results showed up. And then if I switch to will sponsor, then 26 postings showed up for today, right? So just to check in there and see what are there publicly open for international students, right? And see if there are any ones that you'll be interested in. And then beyond Handshake, besides the external lists Dinorah just mentioned, I really want to touch on some of the online databases of H-1B. So there are online databases telling us which employer sponsored international students with H-1B visa for what position and what salary, what location. So you can use the resources I showed on the slides to search employers by industry, career, location, job function, etc., to kind of understand who are the ones who hired international students before. So they might be, able to, or they might be willing to consider us moving on, right? So that's the value of the resources under H-1B databases, because H-1B, for those of you who didn't know much about it yet, H-1B is the primary work visa for international students to continue to work in the US after work authorization. So that's why knowing the employers who sponsored H-1B before can be very helpful. So that's what this page is about. And then if we move on to the next page, this is about H-1B sponsorship. And then the next page, here are resources for us to find out the employers who may not sponsor H-1B, but they recruited international students using OPT CPT work authorization. So the first one is the nationwide data. And then the second one is the one I just mentioned. So within your Handshake resources, you can find the Excel spreadsheets of the OPT full-time employments of international students over the past 3 years. I put them by school and major. So you can go to CED and then look at your major and your degree and see who are the ones. So those can be some add-on resources, right, for you to check and identify potential employers as well. And then we can move on. Dinorah, I think you are on mute. Dinorah, you are still on mute.
Oh, okay. Here we are. Now I am really unmuted, right? I think you can hear me now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you, Jing. So the question is, how do I network effectively since it's so important, right? Thank you, Jing, also for all your particulars about the databases. I think that those
are the areas beyond the very specific job title that you made.
Please, yes, thank you. Okay, so why are you having difficulty? Let's go. Okay, so networking. Networking is something you can do at any time, and we strongly encourage you to do it early. Because it's something you can do even while there are, the job market is fluctuating. You can reach out to people and form connections that when the market improves, you will already have those connections so that you can then make inroads into job opportunities without it being cold, without it being, okay, I'm just launching into this without knowing anybody. You will have built relationships without the pressure of, oh, I'm applying right now, I need to talk to people. So that's why it's good to start early. And again, you'll learn about opportunities before they're posted. So that's the hidden job market. You can get referrals to other people. Whenever you do networking, it's always a good idea to ask for if there are other people who would be good for you to speak with. And again, when opportunities are posted, you can build on that established connection, and you won't just have to ask about the job description. You will already have an idea about the organization, the way people work there, the way people work together, the whole culture. So, and you also may gain an advocate. So if you've made a good impression, then if that person learns about an opening either where they are or at some other company, they very well may let you know about it. So it really does build on itself and is a great way to help you move forward in your career. And networking, having a network, building it, developing it over the course of your career is really a skill that we would encourage you to develop consistently over time. Okay. So where do you find people to speak with? So first of all, the Career Center does have structured events. We have career and internship fairs, and we have career connections events. So career and internship fairs, those are, of course, where you have the opportunity to meet with employers and tell them about yourself and learn more about what it's like to work at their organization. And career connections are events specifically where you can meet a variety of alumni and other professionals in different fields. People who will tell you about their work environment. And again, it's not a recruiting, or actually different from career fairs, it's not a recruiting kind of environment. So you can relax and learn about different fields and make connections with people there. And then on a more individual level, you can use the LinkedIn UC Berkeley alumni database and search for people according to what they studied, where they're working, where they're living or working. And then And so I'm sure many of you have looked on LinkedIn, but the alumni database, many people are surprised to find how helpful it is to actually look for people on there. You can reach out to people, and because you are a Cal student and they are a Cal alumni, there's a special connection, so you can take advantage of that. And in addition, you have Worcester Life, which is specific to CED. That's a platform where alumni have signed up. There are more than 1,600 alumni who are on there from different disciplines within CED. And you can go into the directory and look for people. And you can look for people who have indicated that they're willing to help you learn about their opportunities at their company, who will help you connect with other people, will share information about the industry that they're in. So it's another really good resource, and it's you can message people directly on there. So that's a really great advantage. Whereas on LinkedIn, you can reach out to connect, but it's a little bit less direct than Worcester Life. We have other resources. The Berkeley Career Network is also another network that the Alumni Association is in charge of, the California Alumni Association. And it doesn't have that many people from architecture and planning, but there are people in related fields probably, and you never know who you will find. So it's another one to know about. Professional associations are another good place to look for people to learn more about the field, to make those connections. And the Office of International Relations also has ways of connecting with people. So these are all really good resources that you can take advantage of. And you don't have to feel like you have to do everything, from scratch. You can gradually build your connections over time, and you'll get more comfortable over time doing it.
Yeah, thank you, Dinorah. Those are very good feedback and advice. And I'm pretty sure many of you feel networking is a new concept, or you don't know how to do it, or you don't know for sure if you're doing well with it. But I'm pretty sure the panelists can testify later how important networking is for them. And then I myself also experienced finding both jobs as an international student through my people connection, right? So this is a lifelong career skill, and it's learnable. It is very achievable if we learn about it and practice, and then we can find our own way, our own style of doing it, right? So we feel more comfortable. So yeah, just work with the Career Center. We can train you and then practice with you the nuances of networking step by step to get you there. But we just want to show you the resources and the importance of pairing, talking to people, connecting with people with your online application, right? That way you hear back more, you get more interviews and more connections, especially when the economy, the job market is tough. People connection can give you a quick turnaround and get you to the opportunity faster. Okay.
Great, thank you, Jing. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on how to network, but you will have access to this later. Mostly, I wanted to let you know that, yeah, there are steps that you can take, or parts of what you will say to people that you can work on ahead of time, so that you can think about, okay, what is it that I want to convey? What do I want them to know about me? And then what is it that I want to know? And you can form these questions ahead of time and not be caught off guard. So, it's common to say, who you are, where you are in your career at this point, being a student or a recent alum, what you care about, what you're passionate about, what you can do, meaning your skills and experience that you want to share with them, and what you want, the type of role that you're looking for, the kinds of responsibility, the nature of what kind of organization or setting would you like to work in, and what kind of information are you gathering? So if you work through these things, it should help. And also, actually, you can use this also in your LinkedIn summary. This is a helpful way for you to incorporate that, because many people don't develop their LinkedIn summaries, and it will make you stand apart. It will help you stand apart from other people. So that's one. And then this is an example of a networking script, just to give you an idea of what you could say, and the importance of knowing knowing yourself as well as the organization, doing some research ahead of time, and not kind of shooting in the dark. The more research you do, the better equipped you'll be to ask useful questions and make good use of a person's time. So you can look at this later as well.
Right, and then here we just provide some questions that we think can be helpful for you to talk to or ask the professionals or the employers or alumni when you are talking to people. There are so many questions you can ask. If you do very good research, and then you can generate very good, insightful questions based on what you know about the industry, the employer, and the position. But here are some others we feel can be very helpful. The first one is about job role, showing them you care about the position, you want to know more, like what skill or knowledge are most critical for this position. And then questions about culture and then structure, because we never know the culture of a company without working there. So culture is a very good question. Questions about showing them you care about the advancement, the development, success factors. What does it take to be successful on this position? Because I want to do well, right, with the opportunity. And then the department trends. What are the challenges facing the department? And how can I help, right, with the the strategy plan? So those are the questions that you can think about when you are talking to people.
And these aren't all the questions. Thank you, Jing. These are good examples of questions. There are other questions that you can ask.
Yeah.
But it's a place to get started, to give you some ideas if you're feeling like, I don't know what to ask. You can start with these and figure out what you really want to know.
Right.
So great. Thank you. Okay, so this is sort of a summary of what we want to get across, the importance of networking. Actually, we didn't mention it, but while you're waiting, if you're not finding opportunities, or as you're working your way up to applying, focus on what skills you want to develop. I mean, are there certain areas where you could strengthen your skills? And you can, if you're a current student, you can make use of LinkedIn Learning, and there are a lot of courses on there. There are other platforms online where you can build your skills. And you can, if you're in a design field, you can polish your portfolio, work on your resume and cover letter. You want to tailor your resume and cover letter to different opportunities, but it's good to start thinking about what do I want to get across? What am I looking for that you can convey through those things? And the importance of having backup plans, plan B, plan C, which could include looking in related industries. So if it's not right in your field that you're able to find something, maybe there's something related that you can look for. And employers have also said that, especially at a time like this, even if you don't work doing the kind of work that you're preparing for, but you're doing something where you're developing some kind of skill, anything can be helpful, can be a transferable skill that you can use in a new setting. Even if you're doing customer service, well, that's interpersonal skill development. So that's basically our summary of what we wanted to get across. And now we're going to shift into the panel. Yay! So I'm sure you're looking forward to hearing from our panel. And so Jing and I are going to ask a series of questions. And the first question we're going to go with is, we're just going to ask you all to introduce yourselves. So starting with the alumni, if you could give your name, your major and year, your current employer, your role, and your responsibilities very briefly, just to introduce yourselves. And we can go in popcorn fashion. Or we could just, Emily, why don't you go ahead and start? Or Kai, never mind, Emily.
Well, I'm not an alumni, I'll admit, so, yeah. But I can. I'm Emily Spring. I actually went to UC Davis for school. I work for MBH Architects, and we have a long history of recruiting from Berkeley, from Cal. We're located in Alameda, so very close to campus. We have a lot of Cal alumni, including a couple of our principals that work there. And we do architecture, straight architecture, focusing on retail and restaurants, but moving into other sectors. We're actually doing a project on the Berkeley campus right now, the old Berkeley Art Museum, and then labs and a few other housing projects that we're getting into as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kai, do you want to go next?
Sure. So hi, I'm Kai. I'm a designer and P2P landscape architecture. We're in Berkeley, and I graduated from Cal in 2017 with a landscape architecture degree. And then after I finished my bachelor, I went to GSD for MLA, and then I went back to PWP to work as a designer. And last year, I was also one of the internship coordinator at PWP. So, and I also have been an intern at PWP multiple times, so I know the hiring process and what we're looking for. And of course, we hire a lot of Cal grads, a lot of Cal grads working in the office throughout the years.
Thank you. So Kai can speak to both the alumni and the employer perspective. So yes. Thank you very much.
Yay.
Yay. Okay.
Right. One thing I forgot to mention, I work in HR, so I'm not an architect.
Yeah. Thank you. So Hong Lin.
Hi, my name is Hong Lin Lee. I work from SLM in San Francisco. I graduated in 2019. So I've only been working for like a year. But previously, I did a gap year in my graduate school. I went to Denmark and the Netherlands and OMA in Rotterdam. So I probably can't speak about too much about the from the recruiter side, but I can give you some insight about apply for internship overseas or looking for a job in here.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Deeksha? I don't know where Tasha went.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deeksha Rawat. I finished my Masters of City Planning from Berkeley in 2019. And I currently work in WRT design in San Francisco as an urban designer, which was, well, I guess that was my concentration. And before this, my undergrad was in architecture. So I did some work in that before coming here. And in my current role, I predominantly work on a lot of landscape and planning projects along with urban design projects. So there's a lot of like interplay of different like scales. Our office is really interdisciplinary. So you get a lot of exposure into like all of the different fields that you're interested in.
Thank you. And Tasha, sorry, I've been going in order of what I see on the screen rather than on what's on these slides. So sorry about that, people.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tasha. I am a marketing coordinator at Cahill Contractors. I graduated from Cal in 2018 with a degree in urban planning. I started off in architecture, but I kind of switched to urban planning. And I ended up being a marketing coordinator because finding an urban planning position with just an undergraduate degree was really hard. And so during my job search time, I kind of spent time using like my skills and my interests to find a position as a marketing coordinator.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for the introduction. So the number one question is for Emily and Kai, since you have a lot of experience, right, with recruitment. What special strengths or advantages do international students bring as candidates based on your experience with working or recruiting with international students?
Sure, I can jump in on this one.
Thank you, Emily.
So diversity is a really big topic right now in our society in general. Having a diverse voice, the different perspectives that come with that. And so having different experiences and what those experiences can bring is a huge asset that people have. As one of the things that we love about our company is like how many languages people speak in the office, or we have like a diversity potluck. So again, it's the fact that you have a different perspective and that you've experienced different like building types just walking through the cities you grew up in, or the exposure to the people and the culture that you have being from a different country is a huge asset and something you can absolutely play up.
Thank you, Emily. That's good feedback.
I think Emily is definitely right. I think diversity is very important nowadays in our industry. And also, if you're an international student, that means that you have the experience in another different culture and you speak another language. That's a huge advantage. I think a lot of architecture firm or landscape architecture firm often work in international projects. So if you speak that language, it's a huge plus for the company, because especially for us, because we work on a lot of landscape project overseas. And for now, we're working on a project in southern China. I'm originally from Hong Kong, so I know a little bit about the planting, the vegetations, the climate of that area, which helps a lot with the project, and also with the client coordination. That's also a huge help on that as well.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you, Kai.
Great. So the next question is, for alumni, if you could talk about what strategies you used for your job or internship search, for your job and internship searches, what worked for you and what didn't work, how did you approach your searches? And anybody can go first.
Okay, I can go since I'm already unmuted. Some of the strategies that I used, first after graduating, I used the CED website to find a research internship that was native to urban planning, and I used that to get my first few references in the professional world. And I let everybody I met and I worked with know that I was looking for a full-time job, and I found that would really help, because that just helps having like another set of eyes out there for you, especially since when you're an international student, it can be harder and there are slim pickings. Other than that, I used LinkedIn a lot and very actively. I reached out to alumni that I was interested, like alumni from companies that I was interested in. I just sent them a message and I said, hey, I'm really interested in your company and I would really appreciate if you were able to either introduce me or give me some tips or recommendations on how to, secure this position or things like that. It seems really scary, but most of the times people are really glad to do that. And eventually that is what worked for me, because someone who taught my decal ended up referring me to the company that I was first hired at, and that worked. So definitely leverage your alumni network. That would be my biggest tip.
Sounds great, Tasha. So you mentioned, for example, someone who taught the decal, right? Connect you with the people, resource, right? And then lead you the opportunity. So leveraging the warm relationship and then to more people, right, can be a very good strategy. Thank you, Tasha.
Thank you. It also speaks to the fact that, you never know if a friend or family member or faculty member will know somebody. So think about everybody you know. But thank you for that, for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Who else would like to share?
I can jump in. So originally, like internship search, I think was slightly difficult as an international student. I found it hard to begin with, especially like seeing other people. So I did planning, and with that, my concentration was urban design. So I was like a very small sect of like the planning students.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I was at a disadvantage in some way. And also even within that, I was seeing other students from my program who had like lesser skills than me get the jobs that I was applying for. So there was like, yes, you are at a disadvantage as an international student. So just be aware and like don't get disheartened by that when you're beginning the process. That being said, if you like keep at it, eventually like something opens up. Like I ended up interning with the city of Berkeley during my summer internship in their planning department, which I could then convert into like a internship during the spring semester, during the fall semester also. So that gave me like an into the planning scene, and I had like at least like a 6-month experience working in this country in a planning department, which had like talking points, etc., for when I met other people. So use your internships wisely would be my first suggestion. And a lot of people I knew used So especially in the city planning program, there's a capstone project that you need to do. And a lot of people leveraged that and the research that they were doing in that to make a lot of contacts and speak to a lot of people. And that was a way for them to network, which was really helpful. And a lot of them could then use that process to find jobs. So use those terms also wisely, like when you get those opportunities. The third thing was maintain good relations with the faculty. I eventually did get my jobs because of my faculty. One was offered to me by a faculty who has an outside practice, and the other I was like referred very strongly to by a faculty member. So yeah, keep in touch. I know it's a little strange to keep in touch and you find it really hard, but like just shoot them an email and be like, oh, I'd love to like meet up for, well, now not meet up for coffee, but be like, oh, I'd love to like meet up and just like talk to you about like this. I'm going to start my process. How do you think I should approach it? Do you know anyone who would be helpful? So my faculty did like go over my portfolios with me and give me references. They immediately, like if they could think of anyone who was hiring, would refer me to them. So that was there. Then I used a lot of the networking platforms that were happening. Like there was like a portfolio workshop that happened at CED that I went to. I would like wait and like meet all the people who are in the panel if I know I'm interested in any of them, to like just get a personal contact, so that next time if I see them at like the planning association event or something, like I can go up to them and have a conversation. And that actually worked out really well, because the job that I'm now at, I met that person at the portfolio workshop at CED. I'd looked up like who's coming, so I knew who she was. And I like was able to talk to her. And then when there was a job opening at the firm, I obviously sent in my application, but reached out separately to her. And like, even though that job didn't go to me immediately, but like since she had like a good impression of me, like the 1 or 2 times I'd met her before, she kept in touch and like was like, maybe we'll have another opening. And like it took me like a 2-month process, like 2-3 months from like the first time I applied, but that's how I eventually got my job. So those are just like, it may take like an elaborate setup, but you can get to it. So yeah.
Yeah, Diksha, sounds like very good preparation on your end, right? And I'm happy you leverage that event to get to the people. That sounds very encouraging. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
Yeah, maybe I can share a few.
Yeah, thank you, Holly.
Yeah, so actually I was pretty lucky because last year the market was pretty good. Actually, it was the best over the past several years. So it actually was pretty easy for me to secure a job. I think yeah. So like I mentioned, I had some experience overseas and also like work in different countries before. So that definitely helped a lot. And also I did a few competitions. I was lucky enough, there's some of them got announced and published on the Arc Daily and other pretty good website, world-renowned architecture website. So even before I graduated, there are several firms or recruiter reach out to me to offer a job. Yeah, so like I mentioned, it was last year was the market is really good, so things might be different now. But my point is like you want to if you're able to like you want to do more competition and also kind of submit those works to some some world-renowned website, so get some exposure of yourself, and if you're lucky enough, the job will find you. So yeah.
Yeah, Hongli, thank you for mentioning that. So show your products, your design, right, on the public, right, platform. So that can be a nice way to attract attention, right, including.
Yeah, definitely. Also, maybe you can spend some time to develop your own personal website. I think rather than like portfolio, if you just send them a link to your website, you can just click in and see everything quickly. So I think that's very efficient.
Thank you, Hongling. I checked your LinkedIn before the event. I saw a brochure, showing your product. They're very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hongling. Yeah.
I agree with what everyone just said. Always be prepared, always be ready. Don't wait till last minute. And I think you should spend your time to explore what kind of firms or what kind of workplace you would like to work in. Don't wait till last minute, or you sort of don't just always be prepared. And I also think that what Dinorah said earlier, the hidden job market or networking, are great tools for you to get a job, because this is how I got my first internship and how I got my job at PWP as well. I remember in my junior year, that summer, I tried to apply for summer internship. I think I sent out around 20 something or even 30 different emails. I got no reply. I was very sad, but I still keep trying. I still keep trying to email people and try to reach out different people. So one time at the final review, one of the reviewer really liked my project. So what I did was, after the review, I go talk to him and ask him if he has, first you want to talk to him and try to be friendly. Don't go in like, hey, offer me a job. But
Thank you.
But yes, I think you have to be a little bit smooth about that as well. But yeah, I try to reach out to him and see if what he's doing this summer or what kind of project he's working on. I try to ask what type of work he does as well. So I built up a connection with him. And later, I think a week later, he emailed me back and say, hey, I actually would like to get some help this summer. Would be interested. And that's how I got my first job. And for my job at PWP, I actually applied at PWP for 4 to 5 times, and I failed every time. And sometimes it's not you. Sometimes there could be a lot of reasons why you didn't get your internship or get a job. But I ended up getting this job because my professor recommended her friend to me, and I helped her to do some work, and she wrote me a recommendation letter and helped me to get an internship position at PWP. And that's how I got my first internship there. And then and of course, when you're in an internship place, you try to make friends with other people, try to be friendly, and if they like you, they would like to keep you around. And this is another way for people to get actual job as well, like starting from an intern. And if they like you enough, they will keep you around for longer.
I appreciate all that you're saying, Kai. I mean, the combination of persistence,
yes,
and taking advantage, always being prepared, so you never know if you might meet somebody, and then being able to get into a conversation and be comfortable with that. Speaking with somebody you don't necessarily know, but who responded well to you, so you already have evidence that they're going to be receive you in a positive way. Yes. I think all of that is really helpful. I mean, everybody has given such great input on this question. I think I hope that you, the students are appreciating it. Emily, you wanted to speak?
I know I'm not the person that was asked for this, but one quick thing about networking, to give you guys an insight to how companies look at referrals. We are going to, if it's someone that's just applying for a job versus someone who was referred by another employee, we're going to put that one at the top of the list. So it doesn't mean you're going to get the job. It doesn't mean you're going to get the interview, but we do flag those. So even if something to think about, that the people you're connected with at that company really can make the difference between you getting the job and not, or at least the interview.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's that being noticed, being distinct from other people. Thank you. That's great.
I had another quick thing to add, which I just remembered. Something that I found really helpful that I don't think I leveraged enough, but I thought I saw other people do, is our course, a lot of our classes required informational interviews with people. And I thought that was a good way to reach out to people without the added pressure of a job or anything. So they were more likely to respond to you and have conversations with you. That's how you could meet a lot of them. So reach out to whoever you're interested in, saying like, oh, I just need an informational interview. Maybe I'm doing like a research on this project and you seem relevant, or just in general for my coursework or something, they're more likely to be like friendly with you and be like, okay, and then you can like build relations. It's obviously like a really long-term strategy, but yeah.
Deeksha, I really appreciate that because, you know, the word networking, many people don't like the word and it makes them uncomfortable. They don't like it. But actually, I think in truth, I mean, there are two different levels. Like networking for a job is when you really know what you're looking for and you are promoting yourself. But even before that, you can take a more kind of inquisitive stance, a more of investigative of like, what's it like to work there? What's your experience like? And that can be less intimidating than I have to promote myself. You can start off that way with people where and besides which people tend to like they appreciate it when you're expressing interest in them. You know, not just like me, let me tell you everything about myself. You know, it's like, you know, it doesn't really come across as well as, okay, I want to learn more about what your experience was like and what do you like about working here, that kind of a thing. So it's a really a give and take kind of a thing, and you can build eventually, you know, to something that's more where you are telling them more about what you have to offer. But if it's less, it can be less intimidating to start with learning about them.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. So we prepared some questions to get feedback from the panelists about the application documents, like the portfolio, also how to manage your time with job search. But I think our panelists answer most of them. So I'm going to move on to the next question on the list, which is also for Emily and Kai as the employer representatives. So we want to ask, in what areas can international students improve to make themselves more competitive for the job market here, given the language or cultural awareness, etc. So any feedback, insights can be very helpful.
I can jump in, or if Kai, you want to go first this time, that's fine too.
You can go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the most obvious one is language. Interviews are really hard and they're scary, right? So it's even harder when it's not your first language that you're going to be asked the questions in. So I would really recommend practicing. Like you may feel weird sitting down with a friend, a family member, a teacher, but like, you know, people don't come up with crazy questions in interviews very often. It's pretty standard of tell me about your experience, tell me about your time you had to, you know, work with others, solve a difficult problem, you know, like you can Google things and you can find what common interview questions are. And just really practice, because you may have great questions or great answers, but if you can't express yourself in that moment, the interviewer is not going to hear you. And while, you know, a lot of the design work, you don't necessarily have to be talking in front of other people. And so people are like, well, that's not important, but to get you through the door, it is. And so that is a big piece of that. And, you know, not everyone that speaks English as a first language speaks well. So there's, you know, we don't expect you to be perfect, but if you can get rid of any of those nerves by practicing and getting like your word choice down, I would absolutely recommend that. And then I can't think of an example of someone specifically who did like a really great job, but the one thing is like excitement comes through. So, and this is a hard balance. I told you to practice, but you also want to be excited, and those kind of are like opposite things, but like the employer wants you to be excited about the job. And that really does come across. So anything that you can share about like how much you like the company, like it also shows you did research. But you know, I love this project that you did, or, you know, this is my future goals for this, or this is how I got into architecture. Like anything that shows how passionate you are about the company or about the industry you're trying to go into are really, really helpful. So I kind of answered the question, but the big one I would say would be language.
The language,
Yeah, I think what Emily said is very correct, and you want them to feel your energy. I still remember last year when we're deciding which intern we're gonna pick, because some of the applicants have the same scores, so it's so hard for us to decide who we're gonna pick. But then at the end of the day, my boss asked me one question: who do you want to meet the most? So if you make a good impression during the interview, we can feel your passion. If you can feel your energy, we definitely want to make them want to meet you. Then we're definitely gonna pick you. And another thing about an interview is that yes, the interview process can be very intimidating, can be scary, but the interview process is very standard for architectural design industry. We're not gonna ask you crazy questions like how many basketball you can be filled in a swimming pool. We're not going to ask you that kind of questions. But one thing for sure we will ask you to present your portfolio. This is very standard, and you should know your portfolio well enough, and you should be able to communicate your design ideas, your design thinking in that 10 minutes to let them know what you're passionate about, why you do this project in this way instead of that way, or what you care about in this project. We want to know about your design thinking more than anything during the interviewing process. I think this is something that you should prepare yourself for, like practicing how to present your work, present your portfolio. Then I think that if you get that done, that you should be fine.
Yeah, thank you, Kai, for the feedback. To summarize the feedback here, number one, for international students, it's very important for them to continue to practice and improve the communication skill, which is the basic, but also interpersonal skill, right, including interview. And then it is very important to show the level of energy, the excitement, interest in the industry employer in the interview process, which is for sure what employer care a lot. For the interview practice, the Career Center, we can do mock interview with you as the career counselor. And we also have an online platform for you to practice interview 24/7. It's called Big Interview. So the platform will record your interview practice, and then you can watch yourself, listen to yourself. The platform building AI recently, so they can give you feedback. And I tried it, pretending to be a very bad student with interview. And the feedback was very tailored, very detailed. And I learned a lot for myself. So yeah, use the resources. We need a lot of practice, right, to be savvy in the interview. So yeah, do mock interviews as much as possible. Thank you for the feedback.
This question wasn't for me, but I did want to add one point.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Diksha.
Coming more from the planning industry and as an international student, I think something that a lot of interviewers were looking very specifically for in planning and urban design interviews was community engagement, and how do you how much are you able to interact with other people, and how much do you know about those topics in general in terms of diversity and racial issues in the US, and coming from outside as an international student, especially looking at the curriculum of a lot of the other CED programs. I felt the planning program did give you a lot of information, and there were some classes on it, but the urban design program was a little lacking in that respect. And now that I'm looking at the profession and I'm looking at the interactions that I'm having to do with people, I felt having those skills was really important. So if you build those skills and then you market them to your employers, they're going to want you a lot more, because that's going to be a core part of your job in at least the urban design and planning field. So that would be helpful even to uplift yourself as an international student.
Definitely, yeah, Disha, thank you. Yeah, skill building is very important at this point, especially, right? Yeah, thank you. Dinorah, we can move on maybe to the next question.
Okay, let's see. I think we've already gone through promoting themselves, right? So,
right, I think so. Yeah, maybe we can move to the next one.
So let me ask the alumni. You know what? I'm going to actually switch it. I'm going to ask Emily and Kai. When in the application or hiring process should international students let you know their visa status? Is this one of the first things you pay attention to, or do you take it into consideration later in the hiring process? And how do you have any advice on how to present this information or broach this topic?
I can go first. In all honesty, we prefer to know as soon as possible. And I would actually say from the candidate perspective, a company is very unlikely to change their mind about whether or not they're going to hire someone or sponsor for someone for a visa. It's a long, expensive, confusing process, as unfortunately you guys, I'm sure, know. So I wouldn't want you to waste your time by getting so far and then having them be, oh, I'm sorry, no, we're not willing to sponsor. So it doesn't need to be the first thing you say. And in all honesty, our company, that's part of one of our screening processes. Like we ask, do you require sponsorship? But some companies may not be thinking about it because they don't often hire H-1Bs. So I don't think it's anything you need to hide. Because it's also, even if they don't hire you, they're still going to have an impression of you, and the industry is very small. So even if they don't hire you, you don't want to give them a bad impression. So I would say if you're waiting until like the very end, or if you're waiting to like an offer, and then they find out they need to sponsor you, they're going to be pretty upset. So my recommendation would be as early as possible in the process. And again, as my company, we try and ask at the beginning because we know that that's something to take into consideration.
Yes, I also think that you should be upfront about it. There's no point of hiding it. And like Emily said, it saves everyone's time and it just makes the process more efficient. And also on the employer side, there are a lot of thinking of process they have to go through. But in terms of internship hiring process, we wouldn't, I think that we see everyone as equal. We wouldn't, because to be honest, for the CPD process, it doesn't make much work on the employer side to do it. So if you're just looking for internship, you shouldn't be worried about it. It's a pretty straightforward process. But if you're looking for a full-time job, then I think it's better to bring it up to employer or to the interviewer as early as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Kai and Emily. And I assume most employers would gather that information during the application, right, to understand the work eligibility.
Not everyone. Because some of the firm doesn't have that experience hiring, doesn't have much experience hiring international students. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing too is I can at least speak for architecture firms. A lot of them in the Bay Area are very small. So like MBH is about 200 people. And so we're on the larger end. So we have a specialized recruiter and HR department. If you're at a smaller firm, it's going to be a little more ad hoc about how the hiring process goes. So they may not even think to ask it if they don't have experience with it.
Got it. Thank you, Emily. Yeah, good information to have. Thank you.
It seems as if that's part of why doing informational interviewing could be helpful as well, so that you're learning about whether a company is even receptive, but also, you're already having an opportunity to make a good impression. So, so you can get the question answered potentially, and at the same time, make a good impression. So that, maybe you will talk to somebody and it turns out that their employer doesn't hire international students, but they may think well of you and then refer you to somebody else.
Right. Yeah. So based on the employer's feedback, I want to turn over to the alumni here. Whoever feel comfortable, whoever had the experience, can you share here what was your experience talking with employers about your work eligibility and your need for visa sponsorship down the way, and how did you prepare and hold a conversation? If you have experience for any advice for students here.
I can go. I don't really have
Thank you,
experience
Diksha.
like talking about like work, like H1B yet,
Mhm,
because that's to come in the future.
mhm.
I think so. Something that was helpful was having like a STEM designation. So I think most of the master's program in CED now have STEM. I think almost all of them have STEM. Because
Except
like landscape has,
not
urban design has,
graduate, yeah.
architecture has, and planning got it the year like when I was still there. So we worked really hard on getting the STEM application. That was a whole process. And we
Yeah.
made sure that we have it so that we have a 3-year period, which makes us like more marketable.
Mhm.
So as soon as employers were seeing that, oh, you are at least there for 3 years, they're more likely to have a conversation with you. That helped upfront a lot.
Mhm.
I also, from like networking and like talking to people who've been in different companies, etc., like gathered who all sponsor visas, who all are
Mhm.
more likely to have international people there. So I was kind of like approaching it from that angle to like only go to those people.
Mhm.
um I would also like open the company like website and like have a glance at like who is the staff there. That also
Mhm.
gives you like a at least like some impression of whether it's possible. um beyond that beyond that, I don't really know too much.
Yeah, those are good feedback, Diksha, already. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the 2-year extension for OPT is really helpful, right? When we are
Yeah.
talking to employer. Yeah, Kai. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I think that STEM makes a huge difference because you can stay here for 3 years. But in order to, like, I know that all the degrees have become STEM eligible, but for the employer side, they also have to go through a process called E-Verify, and that is something that they might not be aware of. So you have to remind your employer that they have to go through this process because I think the HR people have to go through a training in order for the company to become E-Verify in order to be eligible to do it. And another trick for you to able to find international student-friendly employer is go to E-Verify because you can search the office that has been E-Verified already. So if they have been E-Verified, that means that there are international students or people who need STEM OPT STEM working at that company already. So you'll be able to find those companies easier.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, Kai, the E-Verify for the employers. We did have students who OPT worked for the employer, but they cannot move on with H1B because of E-Verify. Thank you for mentioning that. We pretty much ran over the questions we prepared for the panel, but based on the research we did for the panelists, I want to follow up with 2 questions for 2 panelists here. The first one is for Tasha. Tasha, I look at your LinkedIn, and then also you mentioned you are doing marketing, right? Now as your job title or the job function. I saw you did a lot of internship in your home country, and also in design and marketing in San Francisco. So we know that social science or marketing can be a challenging field for international students to get in. So any advice, any feedback for international students interested in marketing or other related industry? Any of your experience or feedback on that?
Yeah, definitely. So this is something that I did while um, I was applying for jobs. I would get really saturated with like just doing job applications, and I kind of like use like my time off from applying to jobs to like learn things that I was interested on, like Skillshare and things like that. And I actually applied for a position as like admin to the first position for the first company I applied in. They were like, why did you apply for admin? Like you have a degree in urban planning and
Right.
you have all this experience. But I was like, well, you didn't have a job posted and I was really interested in the company. So I just wanted to, have an interview. And I don't know if I recommend this, like maybe someone in HR might be able to say better. But for me, it worked out in a way that they created a position for me and they also
Oh,
taught
wow.
me at the company. So my first full-time job was that of a designer and a marketing coordinator. So I did help out on a lot of the master planning diagrams and putting all the proposal packages for the architecture teams and things like that. But on the side, I also help with marketing because, like Emily mentioned, we had a pretty small company, so you kind of had to swap hats.
Oh, right.
And I felt like that was an advantage of joining a smaller company, is that you get to dabble in a lot of things. And for another example, just today I saw on the Instagram of this one construction firm, I think it was Dome Construction. There was someone who started off as a receptionist, but right now she's like a project engineer. So, especially since a lot of companies do fund continuing education, it's like a great way to like get in there and learn via their lunch and learns, and find out what you're interested in. Because I found out I'm not that interested in urban planning, and I actually find marketing much more exciting. So it's cool to, once you get into the company, to learn from there as well.
Cool. Tasha, are you using OPT to work here now, or H1B?
H1B.
H1B, right? Because for H1B, it has to be major related, right? But
Yeah.
you were able to make that argument of the related.
Yeah. So that's why I continue to do the design part of it and work as part of the architecture team, because that when they applied for it, they made the argument that I also am a designer and not just marketing. And I also have some business development functions, and so they were able to use that in part of the essay. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you, Tasha, for that. Yeah. That industry domain knowledge, right? Help.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Tasha. Very good. Thank you. And then the next question will be for Hongling. Hongling, you mentioned you had a lot of experience working overseas, Denmark, Netherlands, Italy. Those are the ones I saw on your LinkedIn. So can you just share very quickly with us any feedback and advice regarding job search overseas, even beyond the US here?
Right. I think one thing I gained from that experience is not necessarily directly related to the job applications, but more from my own experience or my own career developments. So actually, the Europe architecture are really amazing. They especially in the modern era, there's like a lot, big names, and there's a more diverse and more advanced than the States, I would say. So I would just want to see, like how they do their buildings, and I got to travel a lot and see a lot of things. But also like for some firms, I have goals, like I have a specific reason that why I want to be there and what I want to help them. So those things you need to think first before you make a decision. Yeah, and definitely like those gonna help you a lot once you get back from to the States. So I mean, a lot of firms in the US, they value those renowned firms in Europe a lot. So that's definitely helped a lot.
Yeah. So Hongli, you were able to both secure the job and also the work authorization or visa, whatever, to do the job.
Yeah. So like I said, it's just my personal experiences. It might not apply to everyone. Last year, like I said, the market is really good, so everything has been easy. But I think one thing you need to maybe just keep in mind is like you want to after you kind of like secure the job or you have advantage when you negotiate a contract, you want the employer to write in the the OPT or H1B response in the contract letter. So in that way, you can actually secure that. Because I know some case that the employer, they agree to apply for H1B, but they didn't specify the timeline. So it might be towards the end of your OPT they start the process. So you want to maybe just negotiate into them like we want to apply for that in the first year or the second year. So that's pretty important. It's also really helpful.
Right. So when you feel comfortable, right, building up the relationship and demonstrating yourself with the employer, that have the conversation, right, about potential of visa sponsorship. Yeah, definitely.
I wouldn't force that like in your first interview. I will only recommend that when you like have advantage in your hand. When you negotiate with the employer.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Hongwei. Yeah, I think those are the questions we want to go over with the panelists. Thank you so much for your insights and all the feedback. This is phenomenal. Thank you all. We still have 2 minutes left. So Dinorah, do you think we should open for questions from the students? Or
Well, I was thinking maybe we could ask the panelists if there was anything that they
Right, yeah,
hadn't had a chance to share that they thought would be important for students and recent alumni to know.
yeah, good idea.
Anybody
Yeah.
have anything where you feel like, oh my gosh, you really have to know this?
Right. Yeah, anything we didn't touch on yet?
Well, it looks like, oh, Emily, you're going to say something?
I guess the one thing I would say is do not expect your employer or the company you're applying to know all the answers or to really know much about it or to even know what questions to ask. It is a really complicated process, and as it was mentioned, it's changed a lot even within the last year. So unfortunately, the one recommendation I would have is you have to be your own advocate and make sure that you have good information, because even if the company has sponsored in the past, if it hasn't been recent, or if they don't have a robust program, or they might have just missed the most recent update from the government, make sure you know what you need from them and what the process is. You have great resources here, obviously. So I would say, again, make sure that you know what the process is like and what it entails.
Thank you, Emily. Do the research, right? Yeah, thank you, Emily. Anyone else?
Yeah, that was definitely important because my employers didn't really know what to do with me, even though they have sponsored people. And but it was like the HR, I mean, like the HR can also change and they might not know, like they might not have institutional knowledge. So I had to be like, okay, now you need this. Okay, now it's like STEM extension time. You need to sign these papers, get that back to me, and like work with them on that whole process. So definitely be on top of that. That is important. The other advice, I guess, for like interviews, like have like a basic spiel for yourself ready. Like, because they'll be like, okay, tell us about yourself. And
Right.
you will have so many things in your head, but you can give them such a blank face. I think having a practice like some sort of speech ready, you don't have to deliver that speech, but if you remember those talking points, that's really important, because that can like really leave you blank. Also have what you're interested in ready, because and have questions for the employers, because that's really important, because if you don't have those, they'll be like, oh, so what would you like to know? And like talk to them about things like, oh, is this like a, what kind of management structure do you have? Do you have more like a flat management structure? Is it more hierarchical? It just like helps you understand the company a little better. Even if they say it's flat, it's usually not flat, just for your information. Very unlikely that's going to happen. But also like talk to them about like work-life balance. In design firms in general, it's an issue. But at least companies who are like more likely to tell you that they have work-life balance, you'll have like a better time there at least than like someone who's just like outright not going to acknowledge that fact at all. So ask them what kind of hours they are expecting out of you. Negotiate. We're less likely to negotiate sometimes. You're in a better position when you have a counter offer, definitely. Like always put that information through as soon as possible that you're considering a different offer, and what can you match? What can you offer me based on that? I did that. It definitely like helped me with like a few $1,000s. You can ask for signing bonuses. And don't just talk to them about your salary, talk to them about like all your other benefits. Talk to them about, ask them what kind of healthcare plans they're offering you, how much out of pocket you're going to have to pay. talk to them about the kind of leaves that you're getting. My company was not flexible, but if your company is flexible, talk to them. Like as international students, you might like need more leaves. That might be a benefit that you are willing to like talk about, because if you have to go back home, that's important to you. And so yeah, like don't think of like talking about your salary is one thing, but then talking about all your benefits are like after that you can consider all of those as well.
Yeah, because it's a whole package, right? Yeah, there are so many nuances about negotiation offer, understanding the job offer, etc. So for if you have any questions, the Career Center, we can help you, right? Regarding those topics Diksha just mentioned. Yeah.
One note about that, because I completely agree with her. I would say the market we're in now is very different. So try not to come across as too demanding. Even 6 months ago, asking for, $1 more an hour, we didn't have enough people to fill the spots that we needed.
Right.
So understand that the market we're in now is the reverse of that. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't get paid what, you should be getting paid. It doesn't mean you can't ask. But do understand that there's going to be less that employers can do. And so maybe don't come out as strong with those, or really know what's important to you and only ask for the things you really care about right now, would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Emily. Cool. Thank you for
yeah, thank you all. I mean, I think a lot of some of the messages that have come through are being your own agent, being an agent in your own career, and being proactive and making connections with people, really researching companies, know the process for OPT, CPT, visas, things like that.
Right.
And you all have shared such really helpful information and stories from your experience. I know Jing and I really appreciate it. And I hope that this has been helpful for the students and recent alumni out there.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah.
47:36, so we're gonna wrap up here. Thank you for the panelists to be with us tonight. Really appreciate your time and your feedback. They're phenomenal, fantastic. We record a session, so we will share that with all students or more students on the Career Center YouTube channel. And then thank you for all the students who stayed up to this point with us. Thank you. Your efforts, right? Staying, making the events showed us that you are proactive, right? And then here, your search. So yeah, check more the services and events of the Career Center. Okay, we'll hope to see you more in the future.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Take care and have a good rest of the fall. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.